Hello fellow ant keepers, and anyone else who has found this video. Through a series of experiments, some which we have caught on camera and others that we have not, we have discovered an alternative to brood boosting. This alternative is easy for any ant keeper to do, yet yields the same results as brood boosting itself. Today, we will be giving an overview of the concept, which we here at Antology have dubbed worker boosting. Before I can explain what we have just discovered, first, we need to understand what brood boosting is. Brood boosting, in its most basic form, is giving the brood of a wild colony to a colony that you, as the ant keeper, have raised. The colony that receives the brood will then raise them and eventually hatch them into their own colony, which boosts the worker force of your colony you've been raising. This process, however, can be difficult for ant keepers who are just starting out, because of the fact that you must find a wild colony and then take the brood from it without hurting the brood in the process. Now, the concept that we have discovered has its own pros and cons. Worker boosting is extremely similar to brood boosting, but instead of putting brood into the colony, you must put live workers. Because live workers are much easier to obtain than the larvae of a colony, worker boosting is a much easier process to perform. It does not come without cons, though. One of its biggest cons is the fact that you cannot reliably place a worker from a wild colony into your own colony that already has workers. In other words, worker boosting only really works with workerless queens. Now that we understand what both brood boosting and worker boosting are, we can compare and contrast the colony boosting techniques. We will begin the comparison with what the two techniques have in common. Both the techniques involve introducing wild ants, whether they are in adult form or just developing brood, into the colony that you've been raising in hopes to increase the worker force of your colony. Now we will look at the pros and cons of the brood boosting technique. It's good for situations when you have a little extra ant brood, or if you have a colony that already has workers. But because it's so hard to obtain the brood, it's almost not worth the effort. Finally, we will look at the pros and cons of the worker boosting method. The pros of this method are, like I said earlier, that you can obtain workers much easier than brood, and that you can boost your colony quicker because you don't have to wait for the brood to hatch. But the cons are that they don't work in all situations, because you can't add workers to a colony that already has workers, because they'll just kill them. A final note about worker boosting is the species that it 100% works with. I have tested this method on Campanus pentavonicus and Novabrascanus, as well as Tetramorium immigrans, and it has worked 100% of the time in each case. This is not to say that it won't work with other species. Those are just the species that I have directly tested it with, and I know that it works with. I have not tested this on any species and it has not worked, which leads me to believe that it would work with most species. But if you want to play it safe, until I can get more videos out that test it with other species, only use this technique with Campanus pentavonicus, Campanus novabrascanus, and Tetramorium immigrans. If you are interested in this topic and haven't already, you can watch our other videos that give proof to this concept on our page. Like always, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next video.